Welcome to the Transforming Lives panel podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sharmin Prince, and I'm here with Mitzi, and we have a special guest. But before we continue, just join me in a quick grounding exercise. If you can, just close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Another deep breath in, and as you breathe in, just feel that breath and hold it. And as you exhale, let go of all the tension, the stress, the things that are incomplete, the things that you have to do for the evening. Just let it go. And take another deep breath in and hold that breath and feel the power of that breath. And then exhale and let go of all the tensions you might be feeling. And when you're finished, just join us back into the room. Thank you. And over to you, Mitzi.
Thank you, Sharmin. Great to start off with a little peace and tranquility. Well, I'm very excited because today we have Steve Cunningham as our guest. I've known Steve for about 3 or 4 years. I met him when he had a company called Read It For Me, and he has morphed into a new business. He has the distinction of being a lawyer for exactly 1 week, reading a business book a day for over a decade as part of his Read It For Me business. And he pivoted into AI and creating the world's largest AI transformation consulting network about a year ago. Before founding Simple Academy, Steve was the CEO at Read It For Me, transforming complex business and personal development insights into accessible multimedia formats. His earlier career also saw him at the helm of Polar Unlimited, a digital marketing agency that led innovations in client engagement across diverse industries. Steve holds degrees in math and economics from Colby College and a specialization in tax law from Western University. He currently lives in San Antonio, Texas, with his 3 beautiful girls, wife Marissa, and his daughters, Sophie and Emma, and 2 rambunctious dogs, Molly and Finn. Okay, well, I love dogs, cats, and all animals, so we're good. So, Steve, transformation is kind of in our title, Transforming Lives, and you have done a lot of big transformations. Can you kind of just walk us through sort of your 1 hour as a lawyer to Read It For Me to where you are now?
Oh gosh, where to start with that one? Yeah, so I went to law school, and about halfway through law school realized that I didn't want to be a lawyer, but finished up my degree and made a deal with my father that if I finished up, got called to the bar, that he would let me join the family business, which at the time was a very small, like mom and pa sign company. I realized that after I joined the company, I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, so I started a marketing agency, and that was around the time when social media was a big thing, and so I went around doing a lot of public speaking about social media. And one of the things that you do in law school is it's basically 3 years of reading a whole bunch of stuff at night, making a bunch of notes, summarizing what you learned, so that the next day when you went into class, you were not embarrassed in front of all your new law school friends when the teacher called on you using, if you've watched any movies that have law school in it, called the Socratic method. So they basically just go after you for 5 minutes, and it's usually a very painful experience. So anyways, you get really good at summarizing information. So this is a skill that wasn't really intended. You don't go into law school thinking about getting good at summarizing information, but it just happens. And so I did, when I joined the family business with no business experience, I decided that I needed to do the same thing, and I read as many business books as I could. So as I'm going around doing these talks on social media, and I'm pitching services to VPs of marketing and business owners and so on, I would invariably see a stack of books on their shelf, and trying to do a little sales 101. I would try to create a little bit of rapport, and so invariably I had read all of the books that were there because I just read all of them, and so I'd ask them, what did you think about this idea from that book or that idea from this book? And most of the time they would stare back at me with a sheepish look on their face and admit that they actually hadn't read the book. And so because I had made these notes, I was like, well, here, why don't I give you these notes? And so, the next time your boss, who is usually the one who gave them a book, asks you about that book, you can tell them something intelligent. So over time, people started asking us, could I pay you to do those summaries? And it turned into a business by accident. Turned into a decade-long run. And then back in November of 2022, ChatGPT comes out, and just like everybody else, I was sort of indifferent about it at first. And then I asked it for, can you give me a book summary of blank? And what I realized very quickly was that it generated, even back when it first launched, a decent summary of a book that would have taken me about 10 hours to read the book, summarize it well, and so on. So I figured out very quickly how to prompt the AI to very quickly do what otherwise took me a long time to do. And so was in that moment a few things, and it probably took me a couple of weeks to piece it all together, because eventually when you start interacting with these AI tools, one of the things that I've learned how to do is think about what I would call second and third order consequences. So the first order consequences, well, now I can use AI to produce these summaries, and that's saving me a whole bunch of time. The second order consequence, well, I can use this tool to summarize books, so can everybody else. And the third order consequence is, once everybody realizes that they can do it, this book summary business that I have will no longer be a business. And so you just think about the kind of the knock-on effects. And so we decided very quickly to pivot what we were doing, because we realized that, wait a long enough time and this business would go away, that we needed to transform our business into something else. So that got us into teaching folks how to learn what we've learned about AI. And over the last, mostly from January of this year to now, we've created essentially what we call an AI transformation company, where we help organizations learn and adopt AI so that they can do every one of their role deliverables faster and easier with AI. So everything that I've done in my career has been by accident. And so transformations kind of, show up, and you decide whether or not you're going to take advantage of them. And if there's one thing that I think I've done well, is to be able to see things that are coming and be one or two steps ahead of those things. So that is as short a version as I can make it of kind of the whole journey, and happy to dive in anywhere where you think would be interesting to chat.
Awesome, thank you. Sharmin, do you have a new thing that you wanted to ask Steve?
Steve, you said transformation. I'm first thing, I must commend you for reading one business book per day. I've met a lot of readers, but have never met anyone who read one business book a day, maybe a week. So I commend you for that. But you said transformation was by accident. However, you were able to identify the changes, right? And there was some innate ability that said to you, go after this. What is that innate ability, and where did it come from?
I don't know that I'm going to have a very good answer for this question, but I'll try. And first of all, thank you for commending me for reading that many books. I don't suggest that for anybody else. But I think I've an innate curiosity about the world and about things. I am very much somebody who needs to create. So I've since I had dreams of becoming, a rock musician, and we went kind of down that path, and I was a songwriter. So I've always had this innate desire to create, and I don't know how or why that was the case. So again, that's where I think I don't know that I'm gonna have a good answer for this question. It's just something that I naturally like to do. It's not something that I've ever worked at. And so it leads me to look for ideas, but also I also have a desire to like turn it into something. So it is not enough for me just to learn something. I have to go make something with that knowledge that I just created. And so that, for me, the book summaries was, well, I'm making something tangible and I can express my creativity through the writing and the summarizing, making connections between ideas. But when the AI came along, and I think maybe this is where that skill, if you want to call it that, has helped me, is trying to find connections and ways of using this new tool that we all have that other people might not see. And so for me, it's a creative exercise to figure out how can I help you in your role figure out all the different ways where this new tool can be useful and help you make these new connections and ultimately help you then go and create. So I think that if I had to boil it all down to one thing, I think it's maybe two things: curiosity and the need to create.
Thank you. But a lot of persons may have curiosity and the need to create, but I think it's a gift. That's why I asked that innate ability, because you have the curiosity, you create, and then you turn it into a business. That's not an easy feat. So I think it's genius.
I don't know if it's genius, and it's not, like I said, it's not something that I proactively work at. It's not like I sit down and say I need to work on these things. It just happens naturally because that's what I enjoy. So it's not like I can impart wisdom on how to do it better. It's just like I wake up and that's what I want to do, so I go and do it. So it just happens to also provide a living for me and for my family. So that has come along for the ride, I think.
Thank you, Steve. Brilliant. I think it's brilliant.
I think you brought up a really good and interesting point, which is the ability to pivot, to look 2, 3, 4 steps ahead and see what's coming. You see and you hear so much about people complaining, oh, our jobs in manufacturing or working in the coal mines, don't exist anymore. And it's like, yeah, right. Things are changing and you have to adapt and make changes. Jobs that existed 50 years ago are not going to exist moving forward. And jobs that we've not even thought of are what are going to be being done moving forward. And I think that, in my working with you, because I started with you with Read It For Me, that ability of yours to sort of look and say, okay, you know what, I can see that down the road that the book summary business is going to, technology is going to make it obsolete, but how can I use the fact that technology is going to make it obsolete to pivot and use that as a way to build a new opportunity? And, I think that that's such an amazing skill. And for our listeners, when you're looking at your business, doing that kind of looking 2, 3, 4 steps forward as to how things are going to be transforming. Can you talk a little bit about how you take companies through the process of bringing in AI into their company and helping them, because employees are scared of losing their jobs. It's like, oh my God, if the AI learns how to do this, we're all going to be out of work, but it's coming and it's going to be. So how can people embrace the fact that it is happening and, utilize it so that they're the ones that survive?
One of the biggest things that we've learned over the last several months is that, well, I'll start with step one. The AI can help you do your job faster and easier, and it's true of every single role, as long as it's a knowledge worker role or the part of your role where you use your brain to create what we call deliverables. So any knowledge work is broken down into you need to create documents and strategies and plans and even down to like emails. Like we're using our brain to create these deliverables that come at a cost to an organization. And this new tool, what we have shown, because we simply, when we go into a company and we work with them, we simply ask them to tell us after, it used to take you X amount of hours to do this task. Now that you know how to do it with AI, it takes you Y, and there's this difference, and that is turned into what we would call it a productivity gain for the company. And everybody that we work with, the average productivity gain that they see after 1 hour of training is on average $4,000. So the gain is not like small, the gain is enormous, and it's been true in many verticals. And also it doesn't really matter which role we're talking about. So step one in this kind of discussion would be the tools are here. They're way more productive than you might think. And there's a direct correlation between people using AI and becoming more productive. That's not like what's the way I put it at a presentation last week? That's not like my opinion. I have the facts on that one. It's just true. So then the question is, okay, well, what do we do about that? So most people end up going through what we would call the 5 stages of psychological transformation around AI. And the first one is indifference or active resistance. So they're resisting the idea that AI is useful. We get over that by simply just showing them one of the role deliverables being done by AI that are in their role. And we've got some tools that would say, okay, whatever your role is, let us know, and we will deconstruct it into 64 role deliverables, pick one of them, and we would show them how AI could be used to do that part of your job. That is usually when people transition into fear, which is, now that I see the AI doing a part of my job that nobody has shown me before, now they get into that fear mode of what am I going to do? And it's what I did when I typed in produce me a book summary. Is like the first thing that happens is a wave of fear comes over you. Like, what am I going to do? This thing that I've been working on for the last 10 years is now going to be irrelevant. I need to figure out what to do. And so that's stage 2. And then if they're working for an organization that is, proactively trying to take this on and not eliminate people but develop them, that's kind of the mindset. Like if your organization brings us in to work with you, they are proactively trying to develop you, not get rid of you. So that's kind of the way that we approach it. And so then third phase is what we would call embarrassment. So you go and use AI for a particular role deliverable. And it's kind of like a double embarrassment. You're embarrassed that the AI can do this part of your job, either better than you or at least as good as you, but faster and easier. And then you're also embarrassed that you use AI for a role deliverable and you turn it. Let's say it's a report that you're producing for somebody in your organization and you turn it in, and then you're embarrassed to admit that you used AI to make it. And so it doesn't matter who you are, you'll feel this. And so then we move into, once you have a good reaction from that, to confidence. So you start to gain confidence that the more you use the tools, the more confident you feel, because now you're just getting more done. Nobody is going to fire you because you're using AI. And then ultimately, then we move into the last stage, which is transformation, that you can, now that you're comfortable and you're confident, you can actually start producing amazing results for yourself and for the company. So what we have realized through this process is that this is a psychology problem to solve, not a technology problem to solve. And that organizations, if they focus on the psychology aspect of it, of again, developing their people instead of trying to figure out how to get rid of them. So the way we always describe this to a leader and also to the people inside the organizations is companies don't get rid of people who find ways to do their job twice as fast or to create twice as much output. Like those are the people you want to keep. You give them more work, not less. And so ultimately, those organizations, which all want to grow, there's the very few organizations that just want to slash costs. Like almost every single company on the planet has aspirations to be bigger, not smaller. And so that means more people. And so ultimately, this becomes a growth enhancer, force multiplier, whatever term you want to use, not a tool that's going to get rid of jobs. And yes, there will be some jobs that go away. But what organizations will do for the people who show the capacity to adapt to this change and take this on is they will just find them new roles within the organization ultimately. So, you got 10 people and 5 of them take this on as a way to enhance their work. Those are the 5 that are going to get more work and promoted inside the company. Ultimately, this is going to be a binary choice. If you take this on, you'll stay, and if you don't, you're probably going to get let go. So it's almost like the only way to lose in this scenario is to stay at that first stage, which is resistance. If you continue to resist this process, it's likely that you will be ultimately let go, which is not what anybody wants.
Exactly. One of the things that I noticed when I've been working with some people with AI is that sort of the fear of how prompt engineering and how to do it right and how to make sure you're getting the best result possible and also make sure that what you're getting is factual, because that's one of the other challenges is that sometimes, garbage in, garbage out. So as these AI things are learning, if they're being fed bad information, then it's somehow getting into the system and being interpreted and coming out as well. Could you talk a little bit about those types of issues too, from your experience?
Okay, so I think there's 2 things in there. One was prompt engineering, and the other one is like garbage in, garbage out. So I think the first one is actually, so there's this idea that you need to become an excellent prompt engineer, and which was the mindset that we adopted initially as well, teaching people how to prompt these tools well. And ultimately what we figured out was that the AI is actually a way better prompt engineer than you're ever going to be. So you can actually go to the AI and say, this is what I want to do. Give me all the prompts I need in order to make a large language model or an AI tool produce this output, and it will give you the prompts that ultimately you need to use. So you copy and paste them, which ultimately creates this like cognitive dissonance, like your job is reduced to a copy and paste exercise. However, you could spend a whole bunch of time trying to get good at prompt engineering, or you can focus on doing your job faster and easier. And if your focus is on doing your job faster and easier, you're going to get the AI to do the prompts for you, because that's the way to do it. So I think for the most part, most people would be better served not focusing on prompt engineering, but focusing on the thing that they know, which is their role. And how do I do that faster and easier? So that's the first thing. So I think it's a misnomer, or it's misguided ultimately, that you need to become very good at prompt engineering, for what that's worth. On the second end of it, garbage in and garbage out, like ultimately that's where if you're in a role, that's where your value is. Like, what garbage out looks like. So when we take this bottom up approach where we're going to train all of your people to use these tools productively in their role, and who knows what is good or not is the person that's already doing the job. So if you're a customer service rep and you're writing emails, like you'll know from the input and output whether or not it's garbage. Because most of the time you're not using these AIs as fact checker. Like you're not doing like fact finding research. It's not like a Google search for the most part. In some cases that is true, but I think that's it gets a lot of attention, but I think it's a misguided attention. They will make some mistakes, but guess what? Human beings make a lot of mistakes too. So ultimately, it's this fear because it's a machine making a mistake versus a human being. But ultimately, the idea would be that's not a real problem as long as the human being remains in the loop and looks at the output and says, yep, that from what I know, that's what I would have turned in had I done it myself. And also I got it done in 5 minutes as opposed to 5 hours. So that's how I would answer those two questions.
How do you
so much for joining us today on Transforming Lives panel podcast. We hope that you received some nuggets of wisdom and seeds to plant along your journey of transformation. If you enjoyed what you heard today, we encourage you to let us know and to share us with those that matter in your life. If you would like to connect with anyone from the panel or our guest speaker, you can find all of the ways to connect in our show notes. We have so much gratitude for you, and we are so thankful to be a part of your day. Until next time, take great care.